This is the best and most powerful trail riding electric unicycle ever made. In this full review, I'm going to tell you why I think the Begode X-Way is the best EUC for the job for off-roading. Yes, even better than the Leaperkim Lynx, InMotion V14, and Begode Extreme. Before we get started with crowning the Begode X-Way as the king of off-roading, let me get something out on the table real quick. This video is made in association with Next Gen Mobility, but I bought this wheel with my own money, and all the thoughts about this wheel are my own and are not subject to influence by any outside sources. So let's get started with the review. The X-Way has 168 volts of battery with 3,000 watt-hours of high-performance 50S cells. It has a 4,500 watt high torque motor and a 20-inch tire edge to edge on a 14-inch rim. They have a claimed top speed of up to 60 miles an hour, but in reality, it's a bit lower than that. Sorta. You can get up to 60 miles an hour if you're super lightweight and have field weakening turned up to 9 and have it in race mode. In fact, one racer took home second place at the Begode-sponsored global EUC race in China on the X-Way. So yes, the top speed on the X-Way technically is about 60 miles an hour. But for a more typical rider that weighs a little more, and with field weakening turned off, the top speed is actually a bit lower. Personally, I experienced 80% PWM warning beeps at about 42 miles an hour on a full battery. I find that quite disappointing, to be honest, and I addressed it with Begode directly. And in essence, I was told that it is designed to be that way. By turning up your field weakening just a little bit in the Begode app, you should be able to expect to reach potentially 45 to 50 miles per hour GPS speed on a full battery without any problems. I found that my X-Way eagerly accelerated all the way up to those beeps without any loss in top-end torque. And that's what this EUC is all about. It's about torque. I felt like I could have just blasted all the way through those beeps and cut out if I tried hard enough. What I'm trying to say is that the X-Way is eager to accelerate at all speeds, even when you're already going really fast, and it doesn't argue with you. It just goes when you tell it to. Speaking of speed, let's talk about happy speed. If you don't know what it is, read this real quick. With the stock pads that come on this wheel, it has a happy speed of about 41 miles an hour. And really the only thing that is limiting that number is the stock pads and the tire, which we'll talk about shortly. For comparison, I awarded the Leaperkim Lynx a happy speed of 42 miles an hour and the Sherman L and the ET Max with a happy speed of 43 miles an hour. A 41 mile an hour happy speed is a little bit of a disappointment, to be honest, considering the fact that it's a 168 volt system and it came out 9 months after the ET Max. But then again, that's the out of the box happy speed. If you put on different pads and use a different tire and turn up the field weakening on this wheel, the X-Way can go so much faster. We need to address the fact that the X-Way was not designed to be a racing EUC. It's not a slow wheel by any means, but the X-Way was designed with the sole intention of being an absolute torque monster, and it knocks it out of the park in the realm that it was designed to operate in. The X-Way has a phenomenal amount of torque. It doesn't hesitate at all when I push it up steep inclines, and even when I go slowly, it doesn't grunt or strain like EUCs of days gone by. That's thanks to the 168 volts of battery packed into this machine. But have we gone into overkill in the torque realm? There is a chance that maybe, just maybe, we don't need all of that torque. Riding on the Begode Blitz with 134 volts and less torque, that wheel performed excellently on the trails with a knobby tire. So it makes me think that perhaps the 134 volt version of the X-Way would be sufficient to get all the torque that you will ever need on the X-Way, but doing so in a lighter weight package in the 134 volt version. I don't know. What I do know is that this 168 volt version has torque for days. Let's talk about ride feel on the X-Way for a minute. It is really, really nice, and that's largely due to the suspension, which we'll talk about later. But unfortunately, it doesn't have all of the settings that I would like, and that might just be because I'm so used to riding Leaperkim wheels with sliding bars to adjust every single nuance and facet of the way that I like to ride. Like all Begode EUCs, we have a 1 right here, which indicates soft mode. You can do soft, medium, or hard, a 1, 2, or 3. But that's really it. You have that, and you can choose either off-road mode or racing mode. But that's it as far as the customization of your ride. Well, that is at least until we start talking about the suspension, which is infinitely adjustable. Begode claims a 130 millimeters of suspension travel, and I did not measure it, but I will say that I believe it, or it's pretty close to what they claim. You can really tell that the X-Way is designed to take on the mountain trails with how well the suspension eats up rocks and surface irregularities. You might notice that a majority of the trail riding footage on this video is relatively easy, flowy trails. That does not showcase the suspension on the X-Way though, because any suspension EUC could handle that without major problems. Well, it turns out that I had filmed a load of riding footage on some of the most challenging and rocky double black diamond mountain bike trails that an EUC could ever handle. But most of that footage is now gone in a horrible camera catastrophe. But fret not, because there's still a little bit of that footage that survived, and I'm here to tell you that the X-Way's suspension really can make the hardest trails seem downright easy. Comparing the X-Way suspension to the Lynx, I went on the same hard mountain bike trails on both wheels, and I found that I had a better time on the X-Way. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't recommend anyone to take these trails for fun. But if you're putting a wheel through its paces, or just trying to level up your skill, then go for it. The X-Way suspension was just so much cushier than the Lynx, and that's saying something. I'm a self-declared Leaperkim fanboy, and for me to say that I enjoyed the suspension on the X-Way more than the Lynx, well, I imagine I'm going to get a lot of flack for that in the comments section, but I stand by it. One complaint I have about the suspension is that it actually is pretty loud. It just sounds clunky. Functionally, it's actually really good, and I haven't been able to bottom it out yet, but the loudness is hard to ignore. In response to this, Begode is sending out an upgrade kit for Batch 1 owners, like me, to allegedly fix this noise factor, and they also included some other goodies which should upgrade its durability. Not that it ever needed a durability upgrade in the first place, but hey, who am I to argue with free upgrades? After being used to riding with a tubeless street tire on my other EUC, going back to the Kenda K262 on the X-Way was a big adjustment for me. The stock Kenda tire is just tippy, and I had to retrain my muscle memory because it just felt so strange. But after only about 20 miles of riding on it, my muscle memory got adjusted and it felt normal again. I still do not like the Kenda tire that Begode is putting on this wheel, and it's possibly one of my biggest complaints about the X-Way. As I said, it just feels tippy and doesn't want to keep me upright the way Shinko tires do. Furthermore, Shinko tires offer better stability on the road. So if you get the X-Way, the first thing I'd recommend you do is to change the tire to one of those two, and your already good riding experience will turn into a great one. But worst of all, the Batch 1 X-Ways don't come with a tubeless compatible rim. I've said this over and over, and I've personally put a lot of pressure on Begode to change this. I believe that for safety purposes, all high-performance EUCs must be fully tubeless. Let's talk about the seat and the trolley handle for a minute. This thing is awesome. The seat and trolley handle are made out of foam, and we have something inside the foam made out of metal that makes it really strong. It doesn't move around, except when it's in the up position, it doesn't lock into place. And I find that a little bit irritating, but other than that, I actually really like it. I think it's a really nice feature and super innovative. The era of lying about EUC speed is finally nearing its end, but it's not over completely. The X-Way's speedometer is not 100% accurate, but it's pretty close, and it's in the forgivable range. Believe me, EUC manufacturers absolutely can make the speedometer reporting completely 100% accurate. It takes literally just a couple of minutes to change the algorithm in their firmware. The biggest problem is with EUC manufacturer bosses dictating how inaccurate their speedometers will actually be, because if they can falsely pump up their speedometer numbers, it makes the unsuspecting public think that their EUC is capable of going dramatically faster than reality. So, thank you, Begode, for making the X-Way fairly accurate and mostly honest when it comes to its speed. Let's talk about value for a minute. The X-Way has pretty excellent value. Now, MSRP on the X-Way for the 168 volt version is $3,750. And before you crucify me in the comments section for making that claim for such a high price tag, hear me out. You don't have to pay full MSRP for wheels. Even though inflation has taken a toll on wheels, really overall, the prices have not gone up that much significantly since the last number of years, but we've had a number of huge advancements in technology and safety, which makes these investments pretty worthwhile if you ask me. Yes, EUC prices have gone up a bit in the last number of years, but EUC vendors are actually eating the profit margin and getting a lot less profit for these wheels than they did in the past. Chiefly among all of them is Next Gen Mobility. So check them out in the link in the video description. Now let's talk about post-purchase recommendations on the X-Way. This wheel is possibly one of the most ready-to-go turnkey EUCs out there on the market today. The reason why I say that is because it comes with pads. It comes with a seat. It comes with a trolley handle. I know that these are some pretty basic sounding things, but this is something that every high-performance EUC should have coming with it in the box. Now you might notice that these blue pads are not the stock pads. These pads are Vertex pads and I bought them myself. I absolutely love them, but the pads that come with the wheel are not that awesome. Nonetheless, the stock pads that come with it are actually not too shabby. They're not great, but they might be one of the best iterations for stock pads that Begode has ever done. The nice thing about these pads is that they do articulate a bit and they are fairly adjustable. I also really like the fact that it's nice and round here, which fits the contours of my shin. The only problem that I have with these pads really is the fact that they're a bit on the narrow side. Because they're narrow, I'm not able to torque down on these pads as hard as I would like, which is very important when you're trying to accelerate quickly, decelerate quickly. It's just important to have a bit wider pads. But really, that's it. All this wheel needs aftermarket is a set of aftermarket pads and you're good to go. So I really would award this wheel very high marks in that regard. I know it's easy to say that insert wheel name here is the best ever. And I know you probably hear it all the time, but that's because advancements in EUC technology, safety, and ride comfort are continuing to come full steam ahead. The X-Way is not the most versatile EUC in the world, considering its slightly lower top speed, but it really can do just about everything really well. And I will say it again, it is the best trail EUC ever made. Trust me, I've tried them all, and I can confidently say that I have never had as good of an experience on the trails as I have with the X-Way. And that shouldn't be too hard to believe considering the previous best trail EUC ever, the Leaperkim Lynx, is over a year old. So hand over the crown to the X-Way, and if you must, tell me why I'm speaking blasphemy in the comments section. To learn more about the X-Way, hit this button right here. And to bolster my self-esteem, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That's all for today. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.